Hi friends, Sharon from Mad Paper Crush here. Today we're going to be doing some faux gilded spines with cardstock and metallic pens. And I love how these have turned out, and they were so much fun to do. And I love that you can customize them to be as simple or as complex as you want. So I have something, just a line drawing here, very simple, something that's more complex, but really is just a series of different marks in order to make a design. It's not really that much more complex. It just looks like it is because there's a lot more on there. And then I also have this fun little one too that used a rose gold marker to kind of match the cover that I have on this one. So we're going to be making this one, and I'm going to show you how to do this. But I also just kind of wanted to show you, I did some samples just on some black tape here that I just wanted to show you how much variety there is for you to do. So you can do something with just, that looks very much like a book spine that has lots of different books in it. You can do something very simple with just some flowers and some lines and some swirls. And even easier, you can do lines and dots. And this one I did with a white pen, but you could do this with silver or, the gold pen as well. So your imagination is the limit here. And I just looked up some line doodles on Google to get some ideas of where maybe I could start. And I came up with so many different ideas that I think would be fun for spines. So this is one that I thought was really easy. It's just 3 lines with some teardrops here and some dots. And I think that turned out really cool. So let's go ahead and get started and make some faux gilded spines. Supplies. Let's talk about supplies. So there's not too much that you need for this project, which is one of the things I love about it. But there are a couple things. So this is cardstock. It's just a black cardstock. It's nothing special. I just had it in my stash and thought that we could try and use it. So that's what I'm going to be using. And it is just a plain black, but I love that you could do this with so many different colors. You probably want the darker colors so that your metallics will show up on them. As I was kind of researching gilded spines and decorative spines, a lot of them were darker, and then the the gilding and things like that, the decoration on the spines were lighter. But you could definitely do it opposite if you wanted to as well. So then, speaking of those things, I don't think I'm going to use my black Sharpie, but some metallic pens are something that you need here. So I just pulled out, once again, something that I have. I love these Uniball Signo pens. I have them in just about every color that I can imagine. So I have a gold and silver that I will probably use. I have a silver Sharpie, and I have this metallic American Crafts metallic marker. So check your stash, see if you have some metallic markers that you could use depending on what design you decide to use. You may want a thinner marker or a thicker one. These Uniball ones, they're actually ballpoint, so they're very good for doing thin lines. Obviously the Sharpie, it's going to be, what you do with this might be a little bit thicker. So you just want to keep that in mind. And then some clear texture gesso. You could probably use Mod Podge for this as long as, it was clear and maybe a matte finish. You could also, I also tried this clear gesso. This clear texture gesso I seem to like better. So that's the one I'm going to be using. But you can experiment with different things to prep your paper. I also have, I'm probably going to be using a pencil and this kneadable art eraser here to erase any pencil lines that I do. You want to be real careful when you draw with your pencil that you are doing it very light so that it comes off, because you don't want it to, show up on your finished product. And then either a paintbrush, or I have this, old hotel key. This is what I'm going to be used to be spreading this. So this is a real technical tool here, but I like using that for big things like this if I'm just covering something up completely. And then I have this embossing tool in case I need to mark any fold lines, and my scoreboard, which I didn't pull out, but I may use that as well. And then also a ruler for, keeping everything straight. So that's kind of what you need. And then, you need to know what size spine you're going to do. So we'll talk about that when we get to it. But like I've prepped some book covers that I'm going to be putting this spine on, and that we will use, you know, at the end to put the spine on, and I'll show you that as well. Or at least I'll kind of let you know how that would go. All right, let's go ahead and get started. All right, first we're going to prep our cardstock, and I'm not going to cut mine first. I'm just going to prep it first, but you could cut this down to the spine size that you want if you wanted to preserve your cardstock for something else. I am probably going to be using this for more than just one spine, so I'm just going to prep the whole thing so that it's ready to go for when I want to use it for something else. So I'm taking my textured gesso here, and I'm just going to put a little bit of gesso on here, and then I'm going to use my little hotel key card here to spread things around. Now you want it to obviously get over everything, and I did put my cardstock down on this little piece of deli paper here so that I can protect my work surface a little bit. And actually I knew I had some, I think I had some, oh, I don't know where they are here. I think I have a couple of pieces of washi tape here where you could, now that I've already gotten it started, it might not be as easy, but I was going to try to just kind of hold this down just a little bit so that it doesn't move all over the place. And then you want a good coat that covers everything, that's not real thick. So if it's really white, that's a little too thick. You kind of want it to be a little bit transparent. So, and I might, well, I was thinking I might need a little bit more, but if you kind of move things around, like it's, you know, it starts to get on your spreader tool, whatever you're using to spread that. And see, there's just a little bit over here and here that looks like it might need a little bit more. So I am going to just take, I'm just going to try to be real careful. I don't need too much. Put a little drop or two on either side here to kind of finish, because it does spread pretty well once it gets on here. And as long as your, you know, spine isn't going to be as long as your paper, you don't have to cover all the way to the edges. I'm just trying to cover the entire thing. So you certainly don't have to be as diligent as I am being about getting, you know, things to the edge here. All right, so that looks pretty good. It kind of looks, when I'm looking at it, I'm not sure if you can see it on the camera, but when I'm looking at it, there's a couple of spots that look a little dull. So that makes me think that maybe the gesso didn't get onto those spots, and I really want to be sure everything is covered. So I'm going to make sure that those spots that looked a little dull get some gesso here. And it's possible it could just be drying at this point. But you just, like I said, want to be sure that you have good coverage all over there. And there's something on there. I think it is drying a little bit. So I think I want to be careful that I'm not smoothing too long, so that I'm going to start making marks in here. So I think I'm going to try to stop now if I can. And then we're going to let this dry well before we get started on the next step. Now, if you were going to let this dry on its own, it would probably take it says about 30 to 60 minutes to dry on its own, but I'm going to use my heat tool. So just keep your heat tool moving, and you want to keep going until all of that white pretty much goes away. Okay, my cardstock is all dry, and I just wanted to mention, you can probably see it on the camera, the clear gesso, this textured gesso that I'm using, does leave some texture there. And I think this really mimics the spine cloth that you might see, or book cloth that you might see on a book anyway. So it kind of looks like, you know, leather book binding, kind of just like this, which I think is perfect for what I want it to look like. Now, we have to measure this to cut it. Now, depending on the size of your book, you might want to do it this way. So like my book is only 7 inches tall. So because this is 8.5, that'll give me enough to fold over my cover on the other side. But if your book is maybe 8 inches tall, you might want to do it this way so that you have enough room on the top and the bottom to fold over your spine onto the cover that you're making. So I'm going to do it this way because I have a 7-inch tall book, but I wanted to at least let you know that. Now, I also need to be sure I don't cut these where my tape might have been covered. So I'm probably going to cut off just a little bit before I get going. So maybe I'll just do that right now while we're kind of waiting here. So I'm just going to line this up and cut off a 1/2 inch off of the width of this. If I because I don't want that to end up accidentally being part of my spine that I have to figure out something to do with. Okay, so I'm going to start from this side to go over. And first we're going to calculate, let's do our height first. So my book is 7 inches high. So it goes up to here. And I need to have enough room on either side of 7 inches to fold it over the cover. So usually I like to do about 1 inch on either side. So, you know, if I came up 1 inch here, I'm not quite there, but I think I have about 3/4 of an inch on either side. So that's going to be close enough. So I'm actually, for the height of my spine here, my spine cloth, I'm not going to cut anything down. So, but you would want to if you have a different size spine, or if you're maybe doing it this way. If I was doing it this way, I would just cut it down to 9 inches so that I had, you know, 9 inches, which would be 1 inch to cover on either the top and the bottom. Okay, but I'm going to hold it this way, and I'm not going to cut anything off. And now we're going to figure out the width of our spine cloth here. So what I'm going to do to figure that out is I'm going to take the width of my spine, and I've decided to do a 2-inch spine, and I'm just going to start adding the measurements over on my ruler. Maybe I'll move this out of the way so it doesn't get confusing. So my spine is 2 inches, and then on either side of the spine, you have to have a little bit of room, which is like a hinge for your covers to close by your spine. So if I do a 2-inch spine, I'm going to add a 1/2 inch on either side for those hinges. So that's a quarter of an inch on either side, which would be 1/2 inch. So I'm going to add a 1/4 inch plus a 1/4 inch, which gets me to 2.5 inches so far. So that's just the spine and the 2 hinges on either side. And then I have to decide how far I want the book cloth to go onto my cover. So you may decide that you want 1.5 inches. To me, that's a little bit much. So I think I'm going to take it, but I also think that 1 inch is not quite enough. So I think I'm going to do 1.25 inches on either side. So if I do that, I'd add 1.25 inches. Now I'm up to 3 3/4. That's on the front side. And I need to add 1.25 inches for the spine fabric to go around the back side as well. And that takes me up to 5 inches. So 5 inches should be wide enough to do everything I want to do with a 2-inch spine, including the hinges and having enough of the spine cloth to go over the covers on the front and the back. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to cut it at 5 inches. Now you can use your paper cutter, which is probably a little bit easier, but I wanted to at least measure that out. Now I want to start from the edge that I cut off and prepped already, because I have this side over here where my tape was and I don't want to use that. So I'm going to put that over here, and I'm going to measure my 5 inches. And that's how wide I want it. And like I said, I'm not going to cut anything off the top and the bottom, because that's what I'm going to use to fold over on my, my cover. Now for this part, I am going to find some more washi tape here. And I'm going to tape this down so that, and I'm just using washi tape so I don't wreck my paper here, but I'm going to tape this down. I may end up moving this around since I'm lefty. Sometimes it's hard for me to use a pen if I don't have like a little bit of an angle for me. but I at least want it down so that I can start marking things off. So this is the entire thing. And what I want to do now is I want to start marking things off so that I know where to put my fake gilded spine, my faux gilded spine. So I know that I have 5 inches to work from, and I said I wanted 1.25 inches on either side of the spine. So I'm just going to very lightly mark those 1.25 inches. And actually, it might even be better to do it close to the bottom. And of course, it might be hard for me to do that now that I've taped it. But to keep things out of where I might be drawing. Okay, so now I know that's where my my front cover and my back cover are going to end. And then I have a hinge that's 1/4 inch. So I'm going to mark that 1/4 inch right past that 1.25 inches that I marked. And now I should have my 2-inch spine right there in the middle. And so I'm just gonna leave those for now, but I wanna do the same thing at the top. I wanna mark those things so that I can just do some guidelines for myself. So let's see if I can, I'm gonna kind of do this upside down because I don't wanna put my head in the camera too much. So let's see, 1.25 inches is here. And then another 1/4 inch. And then from this side, 1.25 inches and 1/4 inch. So now I should be able to do some very light, and make sure while you're using your pencil on here, you use a very light hand, because we want to be able to erase those lines. And actually, I'm not even going to worry about the 1.25 inches, because when I'm doing my spine, I'm only going to be doing the inside that 2-inch mark. Okay, so now I see my 2-inch mark. Now, the other thing that I want to do is I want to mark my top and bottom, because I don't want to end up decorating where I'm going to be folding over. And you certainly could. You would just need to know that whatever pattern you're doing might fold around, you know, the other end if you wanted it to. So what I need to do is I said my book height is 7 inches. And my paper height is 8.5 inches. So I need to mark 3/4 inch on either side, on the top and the bottom. And that'll be where my folds are going to be. And I want to just watch that I don't have my design going above or below that. So I'm just going to kind of mark these on both sides, 3/4 inch. And then I got my 1, 2, 3/4 inch here. Let's see if I can do this. Once again, I'm just going to do it real lightly so that I kind of know. So now I have, it might be hard for you to see, but I do have, excuse me, lines that are generally the outside of my spine. So now you just have to decide, okay, what metallic pens am I going to use? And what am I going to draw? So there's many different things you could do. And I definitely suggest looking at images to just try and, find some things that you think are fun looking. So I'm going to grab some little papers I have here, and I'm going to show you kind of some of the things I saw that might be fun to do. So I started with just kind of some doodles, because I thought, that'll be easy for me so that I don't have to like draw something specific. So I thought just lines with dots on them would be fun. And actually I did that on a couple of pieces of paper here. I just wanted to show you. So this was one that I did, and I thought even just that was very fun as a spine. That could be great. So these are just some of my samples. And then I kind of tried to do this flower one, and I don't think I had it centered, but I really love the way that one looks too. So that was kind of what I was thinking for this idea here. But as you can see, there's lots of things that you could do. All right, and then some other ideas I had were just some other line drawings, maybe some flowers, that kind of thing. So I actually did the flowers, this kind of thing on this one, and I love the way that one turned out. So you can see it was just basically lines, a couple of teardrops at the end of those lines, and then I just added in some dots to make it look interesting. So I really like that one. This one, I used the silver pen for this one. So I think I'm going to use my gold pen for this one. And I think we're going to try something. Oh, the one last one that I wanted to show you was, you always see a lot of these with like, you know, stripes kind of on the back of their, on the spines. So I thought it might be fun to try something like that. So I thought this one was fun too. You could do a big block and then have a small, you know, something written up there with maybe just some doodles in between. So the sky is the limit here on what you know, decide to choose for your spine decoration. But I just played around with, you know, looking at some pictures and trying to decide, you know, how I could turn some of those ornate decorations into things I could accomplish. So I think we're going to try this one. And just so you know, when you try this one, you kind of have to measure it out. So some of these other ones, for example, the only thing that I measured for this one is where the lines went. So I did the first line right in the middle, and then I did the 2 lines on the side at 1/2 inch away from the middle line. And that was the only measurement that I made there. So this was very simple. If you wanted to keep it simple, you could do something like that. Something like this is going to take a little bit more measurement, because if you want things to be symmetrical throughout, you have to be sure you're using some measurements. So I was thinking for something like this, I would do each of the blocks that had the words in them, which I just made up some words in there that I thought would be funny. The big blocks, so where the titles are, would be 1 inch. And actually, I'll do it like this. So these will be 1 inch. And I have 4 of those, so that's 4 inches I know that I need. And then each of these little lines in between need to have, you know, some width to them too. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those, because they go on either side of my title bars here. And so these are going to be 1/2 inch. So if all of these are 1/2 inch, and you could certainly go smaller than this and maybe add more, but I was just thinking 1/2 inch might be fine. So now if I add all of this up, I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.5 inches total. And now, like I said, my spine is only 7 inches high. So I have to be sure that I am putting this I need to start, what did I say, 6.5 inches. So if I start 1/4 inch up and end 1/4 inch down, that should give me my full 7 inches for this. So that being said, I am going to, now because this is the official 2-inch line, I am going to come in just a teeny tiny bit from either side, so that, actually well, I may come in just a teeny bit, because I don't want my my gilding to start wrapping around my cover. So I'm going to, from my line here, I'm probably going to eyeball that. But what I am going to do is I am going to measure my 1/4 inch starting point, because I want to be sure that I don't end too high or too low. So this will keep me pretty centered on here. So I'm just going to put 1/4 inch there, 1/4 inch here, and I'm going to make one more line. And once again, I'm going to try to do it nice and light, but just enough so I can see it, so I know where to start. And actually, I'm probably going to need to do that at the top too, so that I can have my top line look correct there. Does that make sense? So I am going to have to do this up at the top. So let's see. I'm going to do my, oop, that's not what I want to do. All right, I'm so sorry, I'm going to be getting my head in the way, but I need to be able to see what I'm doing here. So 1/4 inch there, 1/4 inch there, and my nice light line. Okay, so now I can see where I can stop for everything. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do my horizontal line down here at the bottom. And I already have the line that I want to use as my bottom line. And like I said, I am going to come in. I'm not going to go all the way to the edge of my 2-inch spine. I'm going to come in maybe about 1/8 of an inch or so. And I'm just going to very carefully put that there. And now when you're using these metallics, you need to be sure that they're dry before you move your ruler around, because you may smear or smudge your ink. And I think like I had done that here. You can kind of see a little bit of the ink had kind of smeared around because I think I was moving my ruler around too fast before I was ready to draw again. Okay, so now what I'm going to do for this one, this still looks a little wet over here. So what I may do instead is I might do this line over here instead. So once again, I'm going to line this up and I'm going to come in just a teeny bit and stop just a teeny bit before. And sometimes you have to go over the line a couple times so that you have a nice even line there. So now that that's done, I am going to have to do some more measuring so that I get all my boxes the right height. And I'm just going to erase some of these marks while I'm here. I could be using my art marker here, but I think I'm going to wait. Okay, so let's go ahead and do some more measuring while those lines are drying. So from that 1/4 of an inch line, I know that I want to start with a 1/2 inch. And then I want to do 1 inch, and then a 1/2 inch, and then 1 inch, and a 1/2 inch, and 1 inch, and a 1/2 inch, and 1 inch, and we should have a 1/2 inch left. And so those are going to be our stripes here. So let's go ahead and do that on this side too. So we're going to do 1/2 inch. 1/2 inch, inch, 1/2 inch, inch, 1/2 inch, inch. Okay. And so now I'm going to go ahead and put my guide marks on here as well. And when I do my actual marker on top of these, I think I'm gonna, whoops, that didn't go all the way. I think I'm gonna try to just go right over the line so that I don't have to erase anything. That would probably make it easier for me. So I'm just gonna make my lines as close to the spine as I can. And like I said, this, even though this is precise, it's not hard, and I think it's really going to have a neat effect. Now, hopefully my other lines are dry as I'm moving my thing all around. Okay, so these look pretty good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my vertical lines on either side, and I'm going to start on the left-hand side. Let me just make sure this one's dry because it looked like it was a little bit wetter. Okay, and like I said, I'm just going to eyeball this so I can see where my my 2-inch spine line is. I'm just coming in just a teeny little bit. And I'm going to take my time and just go back and forth until I have a nice line there. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. Trying not to get my hand in the wet line. And that looks pretty perfect there. I like that a lot. And then the other thing that I was thinking I would do is I would add some sort of decoration to the top. I have a 1/4 of an inch before I get to the very top at the top and the bottom, but I don't want to do something, you know, extravagant up here. So I was thinking it might be fun just to add some little peaks maybe. And I kind of feel like, you know, this is the kind of thing that makes a journal a real handmade piece, is if it has some handmade look to it. And certainly these little guys aren't going to be perfect, but they're kind of going to give just some fun addition to the look of this spine. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna let those dry. I don't wanna move on until I'm sure those are good and dry, and then we will add all of our vertical lines in here. Okay, I think everything's dry again. Now, remember, you can be as ornate or as, you know, simple as you want here. So you could add more lines if you wanted to. So I was thinking it might be fun on each of my 1-inch boxes to add another line right at the top and right at the bottom, right beneath the upper line and above the lower line, just to add some more to it. These are the boxes where I'm going to be putting, you know, the titles of, you know, whatever I want the names of things to be in here, but I thought it might be fun just to add a little bit extra. You could do something like that. In another one I had done, I just added things to the corners. So it's very simple, and maybe I'll just start with that. I'm going to start with a simple, in the bigger boxes, 3 dots, 1 in the corner, and then 2 to kind of make a triangular feel there. And then if I come down to this corner, we're going to do 1 in the corner, and then 1 up here and 1 down there. And you can see it just adds a nice decorative touch. So I'm just going to do that all down this side. And once again, because I'm lefty, I want to start on this side, and then I'll do this side going up so that my hand's not going to be going over the wet dots that I'm making. And I'm just doing it in the 1-inch blocks that I had made. So I'm going to continue doing that. Okay, I am going to add a little bit more just because I'm crazy like that. So I think what I'm going to do, and I'm just going to do it freehand, I'm just going to add 1 little line that kind of goes from the dot there down to here. And once again, this little handmade touch makes it just that, handmade. So I'm going to do that. I like the way that's looking. I'm going to go up and do the other side here, just kind of from dot to dot. When you look at book spines, they are really very intricate. So you could probably keep adding all sorts of things, you know, as you go here. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, I am going to just pull this up a little and turn it for my lefty self, just to make it a little bit easier for me to continue decorating this as I go. So let's see if I can get these back down so that it's holding it in place. And now I want to be sure I'm not going over anything that's wet. So maybe what I'll do is I'll start at the bottom. And what I'm going to do is, no, I don't want to start at the bottom because I'm going to be moving up and my hand will be going up there. So I'm just going to wait until these dry. I'm getting overexcited here because I want to show you what I'm going to do next. Maybe what I'll do is I'll take this little piece of paper. So in each of these 1/2-inch spots, I want some sort of decoration. So I played around a little bit and I thought it would be fun to do something like this. So I want to do a diamond in the middle or close to the middle. I'm not going to measure, I'm just going to eyeball. And then I thought it would be fun to just put some little repeating lines around it to kind of give you the feel of the diamond coming out. So this is sort of the design that I'm going to put in each one of these squares going down. And the other thing that I was thinking, since I did these lines on the in between the dots there, I thought it might be fun to do them on the top and the bottom too. So after this is dry, I'm just going to go through and add those lines and then put my little design in on each of my 1/2 inch strips next. Okay, my tape's starting to come up, I think because I've been using my heat gun. It's probably starting to wear the adhesive off, but I think we're ready now to start adding some words. So I love how it's looking so far, and I really think it kind of gives you that feel of a gilded spine. So I think that's so cool. Okay, so now obviously you can put whatever you want here. You don't even need to put anything here if you don't want to. Even this would just be perfect. So if you're not comfortable writing, you can just leave it exactly like this, and this would be fine. So I'm just going to add some words just because I think it would be fun, and I just chose just some fun things that, you know, I don't know, mean something to me. So the first one is going to be, and I'm going to kind of do it in all caps. This one's going to be the lake, because I love going to the lake. So that's my first one. My second one I'm going to do, it's a one word, and it's going to be R. Rhythm. And I'm putting that one in because that is my word of the year. So I always want to be reminded of the rhythms that I'm trying to make this year. And the next one, and I'm trying to do my font kind of matching here. You could probably do them different if you wanted to. I can't wait for the spring to get out into my garden. And the last one, we're going to call it Sister, in honor of my sister, Megan. Okay, so I think that's all for my spine. Now the last thing I'm going to do, I'm gonna tape it down again, but I'm gonna grab that eraser, and I'm gonna try to get rid of those marks, the pencil marks that I had first made. So I'm just gonna take a little bit here and see if we can really get them out. And you want to be careful that if you have any wet words, that you're waiting until it's dry to do this, because you certainly don't want to be doing this over. And that doesn't seem to be working that great. Let me see if I can use this one. This is the only thing that sometimes was difficult if you bear down too hard, or seems like if you leave it too long, sometimes it's hard to get those pencil marks off. But luckily, I didn't do it real dark, and this will kind of end up looking like, you know, just part of the leather anyway, I think, if I can't get it all. But I'm going to just work on it a little bit and see if I can get some of those marks off. And they're coming. They just take a little time. Ah. Okay. There it is, my gilded spine. I love it. I think it looks so neat. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you the basics of how I would put this in a book. This isn't a full tutorial for this. This tutorial was more just for creating these faux spines. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this page over now that it's nice and dry. And if you remember before, we made some marks on the front. I'm going to kind of make the same marks on the back so that we can put our spine cardboard in. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to measure over, I'm going to start from the 6 here. I'm going to measure over 1 1/4 inches and then another 1/4 inch, and the same thing from this side, 1 1/4 inches and then 1/4 inch, and this should be my 2 inches in between here. I don't think I quite got that perfect, but move this over just a teeny bit. 1 1/4 inches. 1, 2, yeah, there we go. All right, and I need to make these marks so that I know where to put my cardboard down. So I'm going to do that on this side. So that I can draw these lines in. Actually, I don't really need to draw those. I more need to do the spine lines themselves, because that's what I'm going to be gluing this down to. And then if you remember, for the height, we did 1/4 inch, or I'm sorry, 3/4 inch from the top and 3/4 inch from the bottom. And let's do that here. And then once we have all these marks on, we'll know right where to glue our spine piece down. And the other thing that I will do is I will double check this before, you know, we glue it down to make sure we're not, you know, like gluing on top of something here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, actually it might be easier to use my scoreboard. Oops, that's not my scoreboard. I'm just going to do a light crease here to make sure that I have this pretty much in line. I just don't want to go over, that's for sure. Okay, that looks pretty good on that side. And then this one, if that's looking pretty good, I feel comfortable that this one's pretty good. Now I won't completely fold this until we get to the point where I'm adding the sides on, but I wanted to at least have this ready to go so that I knew that I would be good for my spine, which I am. So I'm just going to glue this down first. Get this board out of the way. And often when I have kind of these shiny things, as you may have seen in the past, I like to add a little bit of mark to them so that my glue will grip. And I'm going to use my 3-in-1 glue for the moment. And this is a 2-inch spine, but I did kind of cut it just a teeny bit smaller, this piece, than the 2 inches, so that it would fit nicely inside of the spine here. Okay, so that's all glued down. And then I've already prepared my covers. And like I said, this isn't a complete tutorial, so I'm just going to kind of show you what you would do after you have your spine pieces covered. Is we would glue this down with our 1/4 of an inch hinge on either side here, just like this. And then once those were glued down, then we would fold up our book spine, top and bottom, glue those down, and then we would have our spine ready. So I'm just going to do that real quick. I'm going to glue those down and glue this down so that you can kind of see what the final piece will look like. Okay, my glue is all dry in here. I had to hold this down for a little bit because after we treated that cardstock, it's a little stiffer, which is good because it adds support. But now look at this awesome spine. Isn't that so cool? And I used some marbled papers from my All the Marbles kit that I think match this gold spine just beautifully. And you can see we have our 1¼ inch on the front cover here, and same thing on the back, which is what we wanted when we did our measurement. And this cover is all ready for me to add some signatures into. So there you go, friends. You can make your own faux gilded spines with cardstock and metallic pens. I hope you enjoyed this video, friends. I sure had fun putting it together for you. Leave me a comment below and let me know what you think of making a faux gilded spine. And I hope I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.